Hey, what's up, you guys? I have an interesting video today. It's going to be specifically about a hot mop. Um, I found out about hot mops maybe about 12 years ago, somewhere around there, about 12 years ago. And I'm like, a hot mop? Why would you? And then when I see the videos, I'm like, what is going on here? Like, for me, doing roofing tar on a shower is antiquated. It just seems like It it feels like it's not right. It feels like, somebody had some harebrained idea that if it's good enough for a roof, it's good enough for a shower. And for that reason, what I found out, well, a couple things I found out because I did a little deep dive into it. I'm not really interested in hot mop because, mm, we don't it's not a thing that we do here in the South or the East Coast or anywhere like that, or even the Midwest. I don't think. I think it's relegated to the West Coast, specifically California, where it emanated. I thought on my research that it started 50 years ago, around the early 70s. What I found out was that it was invented by Bob and Thelma Fulghum in 1957, because they rationalized, just like I said, if it's good enough for a roof, it's good enough for a shower. But what it also says is that it lasts about 15 years. And that kind of tripped me out because I guess arguably a roof would last about maybe 15, 20 years before it needs, but it has different components to it, has shingles and stuff. But a hot mop is basically the prep for doing a roof. Like you would literally do the prep. It's 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 bizarre. If some of you guys haven't seen it before, I'm going to play the full video. It's about 20 minutes long, and so I'm not going to interrupt. They did fast forward, so there's little stuff going on. I may interrupt midstream to give my thoughts on it, because I have thoughts about it. Let me say it like this. Sometimes there's not a better mousetrap. Sometimes the mousetrap may seem like it's better, but because it's not adopted um, throughout, because it's not monolithic. We're not doing it from New York to California and Minnesota down to Texas. It's just not. And so for that reason, I just don't feel. I feel like they were onto something for the time, because in 1957 they didn't have pan liner. In 1957 they were doing lead pans. I've taken out probably half a dozen lead pans. They are heavy as hell. Um, and I think that's probably pretty much from the turn of the century what they used. I think so. And then they're like, you know what? Let's come to an alternative for lead pan in 1957. And that's when they devised a hot mop. But I know pan liners have been around from at least the early 70s, if not the mid 70s into the 80s for sure. And so I think, in the same way that Bob and Thelma thought that lead pans are antiquated and let's do something better, that's why the pan liner came along, because it's better than the hot mop. A pan liner is going to last forever. It's rubber. Why a hot mop only lasts about 15 to 20 years, I don't know. I don't know. There's a breakdown of the material over time. I don't know. I don't have an answer to that. But anyway, without further ado, I'm going to get on to this because I'll talk over myself. I'm going to let this play, like I said, and I'll chime in on it if I need to. So what you're seeing here, you're seeing a pre-slope. So the way they do hot mop, they do a pre-slope first. And then also they're blocking everywhere. You see the blocking is there, looks like 2x10 blocking, that's between the studs. And they blocked pretty much everything in order for the tar paper to rest up against it. However, the hot mopping videos that I've seen shows blocking throughout of some sort, and they don't have it on the bench. You see that void right below the top of the bench, down to the bottom blocking. There's a void there, and that just seems like if you're going to do it like, I don't know. They're also going to hot mop the outside of the bench, and you see there's 2 voids there between the 2x4s. So I don't like the idea that there's voids. And I'm not seeing that in other videos. I'm actually seeing that they put plywood or they put something there to be kind of a monolithic. You're also going to notice something. They're going to put 2 or 3 layers of this tar paper. So it's a little bit of redundancy. They're going to overlap a lot of areas. But I think at the end that a hot mop is about a 1/4 inch thick. If you just excise, you know, like a 4-inch square or a 5-inch square, whatever square, and just like put it up sideways, you would see about a 1/4 inch thick is what this pan liner, I don't know if I'll call it a liner, what this pan amounts to in thickness. So that it holds water, absolutely it holds water, but oh my God, the smell and the mess. And this guy's doing it barehanded, right? Like his helper is doing all this fold, all the tar paper and everything. And if you watch the video all the way through, he doesn't have any tar on his hands. Like you would expect tar all around his hands. And then, I don't know. For the smell it's going to cause in a house, for all the slop that it's going to cause in a house, unless this is a new build, I don't know. Something still bothers me about those voids in the bench. Even though they have a couple layers of tar paper and the hot mop that is covering the voids, and then of course tile's going to go over that, I still don't like it. All right, I want to pause it right there. I want to talk about, obviously he's cut the hole for the drain. I never agree with that. I see why it's done on hot mop because you're dealing with tar paper, so you can't really push the locking flange the way, mm, the bottom flange rather, the way that I would normally do it. Well, locking flange, as it were. Sorry. Um, I don't know that he cut a hole or an X for the bolt, for the bolts to go in. I'm not sure. What I do know is that they use, and I don't think I have a picture of it. I was going to snap a picture of it to show up on the screen. But what they use for hot mops is a cast iron drain. And I think it's adjustable, but when I see them, they're probably a good part of 2 inches high before the top of the flange. And that's quite high for a drain. And I don't like the cast iron drain. Also, and I don't have it here, but you can Google it if you want to. There's only 3 weep holes. For these cast iron drains, there are only 3 weep holes, and I don't like that at all either. I mean, not that four, like another weep hole, is not going to do a whole lot of good, but if there's problems with weep holes being clogged, which apparently there is on a hot mop, specifically, it's because there's only 3 weep holes and there's only, I don't know, there's less possibility for water to egress out of a hot mop. And interesting here too that they put in the same way that a lot of guys feel like they want to put in, the extra pieces of liner in the corners and stuff like that to protect the corners. They're doing that on a hot mop as well, which is a bit odd because I don't know how much more the corners would help them. They've already got, 2 or 3 layers of tar paper on there, and every layer gets hot mopped. And then another layer goes on, and another layer goes on. So I don't know how much more the corners would do. I really don't. Isn't that crazy? This is so crazy to me. So if you notice what he's doing there, he's letting all that tar drip down to the drain because, as I said, there's a pre-slope below there. So the tar wants to naturally kind of float its way down to the edge of the flange, right? What I've seen other people do is tape off the top part of that drain, and just hot mop all around it, and I guess pull the tape off later. But that's eventually what he's doing there, making sure that it drips all the way down to the edge of the drain, and then the outside of the curb, which arguably is kind of unnecessary. Outside of the bench, unnecessary. Isn't that crazy? That's so crazy. You know, the idea, again, to reiterate, in 1957 when these guys invented the hot mop, and it gained traction, I think what happened is it took about 10 years, and I think that's why when you try and find out when did hot mop start, it was like the early 70s, because I think it took a while to gain traction before people decided to do it. Prior to that, as I said, there were lead pans. I've heard of copper pans, and I've seen them from time to time on videos, but I've never run across one. Can you imagine a shower pan made out of copper? What that would be worth? Um, so they came up with a solution to a problem that really wasn't a problem at the time. You know, lead pans, yeah, no water's going to get through the lead, but they were heavy and they're hard. They're a little difficult to manipulate. Um, and probably, you know, for the same reason we don't use lead paint and all that stuff anymore. You know, they didn't want lead, like literally lead pans in a house. So I think that's another reason that it gained traction in the 70s, because in about the late 70s, early 80s is when all these different these toxic materials, you know, asbestos and lead and all this stuff was outlawed in California. Well, a lot of places, but mainly California because they like to outlaw everything. Um, I don't know how I feel about it. I know how I feel about it. If I were back in California, which is my home state, and I started out in this business doing tiling hot mops, dealing with hot mops. Me personally, I would probably look at it from the same point of view. This is antiquated. This is not necessary. This is so outdated now, you know, 40, 45 years later after the fact, because, you know, we have access to pan liners, rubber pan liners. So then why do the hot mop? I don't understand. I really don't. I mean, even to the point where they're about the same price ish as if you were to do, say, I don't know, fiberglass, all kinds of foam pans, all kinds of different stuff. I think the average cost of a hot mop is somewhere between about 250, 300 to about 500. So figure just 500, right, for a hot mop. And you saw how long that took. Well, yeah, they put it on double speed, but 40 minutes, an hour to do a hot mop. And then they say a couple hours later, you could actually walk on it, which that means basically that you could pour your mortar bed at that point. I don't know. It doesn't save any time, because I could surely put in a pan liner quicker than they could do a hot mop. It doesn't save any cost, because a pan liner is going to cost you $60, $70, and a hot mop is going to cost you 500. It doesn't save you from the shower leaking, because there are hot mop showers that have leaked, and a lot of people will argue that it was the tile guy that caused it to leak because he didn't cover the weep holes with pebbles, and therefore, I don't know. I don't know what to feel about it. You know what? Tell me what you feel about it. I don't have a need. I don't have a desire to ever deal with a hot mop in any respect, whether installing one, whether tiling over one, anything to do with it. I don't know. It just feels funny, and not in a ha way, like funny, like I don't know. It's weird. Anyway, I just wanted to show you guys that. Usually on Wednesdays I do critique videos, But when I ran across this, I'm like, "Oof, I don't know if I want to critique it because there's a lot of guys that believe in it, and I don't want to throw salt on something because it does work." I mean, arguably the same way that those guys in 1957 thought, "Hey, if it works for a roof, why wouldn't it work for a shower?" Yeah, it works, but why? Why do that? I don't know. Just my thoughts. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section, and we will see you on the next one next Wednesday. Hey, if you enjoyed that video and you learned something, consider being a Patreon member. $5, $10, $15 a month would help me greatly produce more videos. I make nothing from YouTube at all. If you're going to call me for advice, please donate $50 for 30 minutes. My link to my PayPal and my Patreon account is down below. And if you haven't already, hit the subscribe button and hit the bell so you get immediate notifications as soon as I post videos. And thank you very much for your support.